Welcome to the Page One Podcast, a twice-weekly podcast featuring a variety of guests and thought leaders on topics ranging from channel strategies to tariffs, influencer marketing, best-in-class product launches, and all the details about how to accelerate your e-commerce sales with the big box retailers, or what we call R-commerce. Now here's your host, Luke Peters.
Thanks for joining us on the Page One Podcast. I'm your host, Luke Peters, CEO of New Era Appliances and retail brand Digital Strategy Agency. We are now in a coronavirus world, and I know it's on everyone's mind, so I'll adapt all of the interviews to ensure that you, the listeners, are getting the most of this podcast. You can expect us to get right to the point, provide valuable insights, and with a focus on COVID-19 impacts. Quickly before I get on, I'm offering a free evaluation of your online sales strategy. If you're interested, find me on LinkedIn or email me at luke@retailband.com. We can take a look at your Amazon sales, direct to consumer, or any of the other digital channels that you're in, and we can help you win there. In this episode, you're going to learn from Alix James, and we're going to hear about how she's built an how she's succeeding with electronic products, building them in America. And she's a Yale undergrad, so a couple levels above my California state education here. Majored in English, economics, rowing, University of Penn, earned a JD there, 3 years practicing in law, and then joined Nielsen-Kellerman in marketing and whatever else needed fixing. She took over as CEO in 2008 and then led a founder sale to private equity in 2010. NK builds weather data products mostly in the U.S. So Alix, go ahead and kind of fill in any blanks there on the intro and tell us a little bit more about what you guys sell.
Hey, you did a great job with the intro. I guess the one piece that didn't get filled in is that you can explain my convoluted career by the fact that my stepdad was one of the three founders of the business that I now lead. So it wasn't a complete coincidence that I wound up coming back into the business. It started in our basement. We are a true U.S. basement business success story. Two scientists who were research scientists but wanted to make stuff. And we started in the rowing sports area, which is actually still a significant part of our business. And eventually took some of what we knew about measuring things and making waterproof products and wound up making handheld weather instruments. And then added on through acquiring two companies. Right now, we're also making weather stations. And those two companies are Ambient Weather and Rainwise Weather. So we have quite a few brands under the NK umbrella. The sports equipment does go out to market under the NK brand, and then the handheld weather instruments are all Kestrel, and then the weather stations are Ambient and Rainwise.
Wow. And for the audience, we'll jump into some coronavirus questions, or related to your business. But before we get there, Alix, I just want to kind of probe a little bit, and you can just tell me what's fair ground or not. But you guys, so you led a sale to private equity in 2010. How old was the business at that time? And was there a key reason why to join private equity at that time?
So the business would have been roughly 30 years old. It was founded in 1978.
Oh, wow.
And the main reason to look at private equity was one of the classic reasons why businesses do move to private equity backing, which was founders that had reached retirement age and a management team that were ready to take it forward but didn't have the capital to buy out the founder's value in the business.
Got it. So the founders earn some liquidity, and then management team, including you, gets the proverbial second bite at the apple. Was it that kind of a situation that you're putting together?
Well, you kind of got to earn the second. The second bite of the apple would typically be the founders retain some equity. In this case, actually, all three founders happily took their checks and retired.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And the management team went forward. We did get some equity in the business that initially was worth nothing, but we very successfully grew the business through the first 6-year hold. And private equity generally looks for a 4 to 7 year hold. So at that point, our first investors were ready to move on to other things, put us on the market again. And we traded to another private equity group called Clearview Capital in Connecticut.
Oh, I'm familiar with them actually. Okay, cool.
Oh yeah, great group, really great. They've been phenomenal partners through the fabulous times that we were having until March 15th, and they're being good partners right now as well.
Wow, that's awesome. So now and then along the way, you guys purchased a couple companies. I think it's really timely right now. I just to be open, I think a lot of businesses are going to be looking to do that in the next couple months. There may be some opportunities. In your case, can you share how big, maybe you don't have to tell the total dollars, but like in percentage or proportion of sales to your original company, how big were those acquisitions? And I'm assuming the PE group had kind of the assets to help you integrate them?
Correct. So, well, the way we did it from a financial standpoint, as you and your listeners are probably aware, private equity uses a combination of their own investors' dollars, which is the equity portion of a purchase, and then there's always some debt as well. And just like you can increase your equity value in your house by paying down your mortgage, companies can increase the equity value and borrowing power that they have by growing and paying down the debt that was used to buy them. So we'd actually already done that a good bit over the first year and a half that Clearview had held us. So these purchases both were done with a combination of additional debt on the whole combination and additional equity investment, as well as founders of the two businesses we bought rolling equity into the deal. So they are indeed all getting a second bite of the apple as by being part of this larger group. In terms of relative size, one was about half our size and one was significantly smaller. We, which I don't recommend, but it's working out okay. We wound up doing essentially two right at the same time. So we closed one in mid-December and one in mid-January. And that's giving us plenty of work. That was giving us plenty of work to do to really get all the businesses working on the same back-end business systems and processes, and using a lot of what we'd figured out about how to automate things like Amazon accounting and shipping. And, we have at NK, we had a really well integrated back end, very tied into our e-commerce systems and shipping and all of that. And so we've been working to get these two smaller companies both enabled with those same systems, which is going to make their workload way smaller once we get it done.
Yeah, well, a lot of work. We just did a conversion, ERP conversion last year, so it's a ton of work. So getting two companies to convert over, I'm sure is that'll be an ongoing job. Are you guys are all of the brands going to be on one website, or are they going to kind of live on their own separate domains?
We've definitely been moving more and more in the direction of separating them. That was actually an issue for NK as well. We had been keeping all of the brands on their own, on all three NK brands on one home site. And while that did some good things from an SEO standpoint, because traffic from one brand would benefit the other brand, it really didn't help, particularly the Kestrel brand, because whenever the main brand is showing up as a sub part of the URL, Google doesn't regard it as authoritative. So we have been splitting out the brands. So there is a brand for NK Sports. Right now, Kestrel Weather and Kestrel Ballistics, which we can talk a little bit about that, are one site, but we're just about to separate off the ballistics site. Ambient has its own site, and we'll keep it that way. Actually, Ambient has two sites, one to buy the hardware and one to view your data from the hardware. And Rainwise, we just launched a brand new site for them last Wednesday.
Great. And let's transition to COVID-19. We've got a couple questions on that because I'm sure it's, first and foremost on the audience mind. Talk about supply chain changes that you've made already, or you're going to be making because of the COVID-19 impact. Well,
so across our businesses, all of the NK products and the Rainwise products are built in the United States. That being said, there are electronic products, and some sourcing in China for components is essentially unavoidable. Honestly, we got tight on some of those, but the timing of this was interesting from the standpoint of people that are sort of used to sourcing things in China, because it came hard on the heels. Well, actually just in front of, and then the impacts really came just after Chinese New Year. And that is always a time period that anybody sourcing in China has to work around, because you always have a supply chain interruption then. And because we had known that was coming, we stocked up beforehand, and they got back up to sort of 60 to 70% of production and shipping by the end of March, and actually by early March. So we wound up really close on a few components, but we didn't stock out of anything for more than a day or so. Ambient's business is a little bit different. They are bringing in China-made products. They had also brought in a lot of stock prior to Chinese New Year. But so far we haven't stocked out of anything, but we may see, a few days or a week of difference. We are on things that we are definitely looking to try to find other sources, whether they're domestic or other countries. We'd like to diversify. Some things it's just really challenging. The display in your devices, even if the device is made somewhere else, the displays are almost 100% built in China. And displays are not something you can just throw a switch and pick a different one. They're pretty specific to the product you're making. Usually they're custom. And even if you want to source a custom one somewhere else, the factories pretty much only exist in China. So there are challenges there.
Yeah.
But that's, for us, that's not the biggest problem we're facing. It is something that we'll be working on over the next couple of years. And one of the things, particularly with ambient, one of the big open questions is what's going to happen with tariffs. Almost everything from China that we're bringing in has an extra 25% tariff on it. And some of those products, particularly the ambient products, are in a very price competitive environment. So just throwing on a price increase to cover it is not necessarily an option. And right now, I can't even predict which way the political winds are going to blow on that.
Yeah, well, expect them to stay where they are. That's kind of what we're doing. Who are your customers there, and do you have any price elasticity, at least with them? I'm not direct to consumer. Of course, you can raise the price, but do you have, say, big box or other store customers that are making it really difficult to raise your prices, or have you guys already been able to do that?
So we do not, and that is one of the things that really sets us apart from some other brands that we compete with, again, particularly in the more affordable weather stations area. So Ambient sells entirely online direct to customer. They don't sell their products at retail at all. They're not on the shelf anywhere. And they don't use distribution. So if you buy an Ambient station on Amazon or you buy an Ambient station on ambientweather.com, you are buying directly from Ambient in Arizona.
And what's the average order value?
Which does give them flexibility. However, their highest selling product is in a price band that is very competitive. And there are competing products, coming straight from China. And as you well know, on Amazon, being 50 cents more than the next one can be problematic. Ambient's in an enviable position. Their station is, if you search for a weather station on Ambient, they're the number one or number two consistently on Amazon, but a significant price hike would definitely change that.
And Alex, what is the average order value, just in case the consumer doesn't know, the size and the cost of one of these weather stations?
Hugely variable. So that top seller is $169 for a weather station that's the whole sensor array that you would put outside, either on your roof or on a mast or on a pole in your yard. And it includes a really nice color display that goes in your house and connects wirelessly to that sensor array and displays all of the data from it. And the other thing that really sets Ambient apart from some of the alternatives is that display also has Wi-Fi in it. So it's going to connect to your Wi-Fi network, and it's your choice, but most people choose to do it. You can put all of your data from your weather station up on ambientweather.net, and you can share it or not as you choose. You can make it public or not. So if you put a weather station on your beach house or your cabin in the mountains, you can see that weather data as well from your regular house.
Oh, that is a fun feature. And
so it's a lot of value for $169, which goes on up to, a RainWise fully loaded professional grade weather station with multiple sun sensors and temperature sensors for monitoring big commercial solar power installations. Now there you're going to be looking at probably closer to $2,000 or $3,000.
Yeah, and that's a more exciting average order value, right? For a CEO, you want to sell a lot more of those,
but a longer sales cycle and fewer target customers.
Yeah, for sure. And how has the coronavirus, COVID-19, how has it impacted your sales? You guys are direct to consumer, so a lot of those brands are succeeding right now. Has that been the trend with you guys, or how's it looking?
Well, so as I mentioned, our founding business, and still a significant part of our business, is selling electronics to the sport of rowing. And rowing is usually, particularly at this time of year, most of the activity is driven by high schools and colleges, as well as preparation for international competition, including the Olympics. You might have read some stuff about what's going on with high schools and colleges and the Olympics.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's gotta be tough.
So rowing has been canceled worldwide, not just in the United States. I mean, everywhere where there's rowing, it's not happening. And as a result, that part of our business has shrunk to essentially nothing. Now that being said, we have 100% confidence that it will come back. And we are probably the 85 to 90% supplier of that equipment worldwide. So it's a question of just hanging on, but it is pretty painful in the short run. The weather business, however, weather is not changed by the presence of a virus. And a big part of the demand for our products is actually driven by people wanting to measure weather associated with a job, be it agriculture or firefighting or tactical. A lot of those activities obviously are continuing, and the need for the products is continuing. So we're not seeing much sales impact there. Power generation is still going on. And the ambient products being an affordable price point and people being home in their house, we're seeing that they still really would like to install a weather station. And in fact, I think I wouldn't say our sales are up, but they're not significantly off. I think people have time to do some of those home projects. And I always wished I would have a weather station. Now's a great time to buy one and install it and set it up. So it's really, really variable across different parts of our business.
Great. And then last question, just specifically on COVID is, so on the rowing segment, so that's almost to zero, and that's got to be just really tough. And all sports and entertainment are just getting hit right now. How, just as you as a CEO navigating it, is there a specific, say, activity or something that you focus on? Because, you have your trained team, you have, I'm assuming, or speaking for you, but I'm assuming, say, marketing folks and other sales folks. But some of those things can't happen, say, on the sales side. But then is there something where you guys are able to kind of focus on now, knowing that when this crisis is over, you'll be stronger in a certain area? Or how have you as a CEO been able to kind of change strategy and change course?
So, none of us know how long this is going to go on. So you can kind of plan for 30 days out, but try to be smart for a really ugly scenario that means this continues for 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. But you can't quite plan for that. So we are big picture, adjusting our actual manufacturing capacity to demand. So we do have a handful of people out on furlough that are building products, but we have not pulled back from the general marketing activities and from research and development. We do all of our own development of our products as well. So our engineering team everybody's working from home if they're not building products, but all research and development, all the agile teams are still working. They're meeting by Zoom. All the products that we plan to launch later this year and next year are moving forward just as fast. Actually, probably faster. It turns out they work really well when they work from home. From a marketing standpoint, we're really trying to focus on education. We're running, so one of our areas that we didn't talk about very much, we make a weather instrument that's specifically for long range shooting. And it's actually a fairly complex product to use. It does an amazing job helping you put bullets on target at a mile and a half. But in order to accomplish that, there's a lot of inputs into the calculations that help you do that. So we're running Zoom School on ballistics, and that's open to customers to sign up. And our ballistics expert, who is also our lead salesperson in that area, Katie, is running those schools, and she does those schools for military snipers all around the world. So they're getting access to some pretty high quality training with ballistics school with Katie. On the rowing side, again, we're focusing on general education. People all know they're going to get back on the water, and we're also helping to sponsor an indoor rowing competition. Rowers are all willing to spend an absolutely amazing amount of time sitting on the Concept 2 ergometer and rowing for hours indoors. And so there's a variety of different competitions that are going on with getting your data from your erg and posting your erg scores.
Wow. So it's I love the subjects that you're involved in because they're so niche. And then that means you got really a passionate audience. I think, I'm hopeful that sports will be coming online, maybe not, going actually to professional sports and stadiums, but I think high school, college, and other levels of sports from the athletic side, I think people will be able to be trained soon. I think there's becoming like a pent up demand to actually get out and do something. So hopefully, when the medical experts think about moving us back to work, I think that, a lot of them are going to realize that some of these outdoor activities have very low chance of spreading the virus and creating super spreaders.
Well, I think there's going to be, if you really sort of tease it apart, there's doing the sport, there's watching the sport on television,
yep,
and there's watching the sport in a stadium. And, obviously the last one is going to be the last one to happen.
Exactly.
I read the coolest story this morning. So MLB, Major League Baseball, they have amazing lab capabilities associated with doing performance enhancing drug testing. And they are taking the lead on running a huge antibody test on basically everybody involved in Major League Baseball. They're testing athletes, they're testing coaches, trainers, the people on the management and admin. And they really have the capability to do that testing well and manage the data well and really start giving us some of that national level view of how, what is the extent to which we've developed immunity in the broader population. And I was just so excited about it because it's a private, I guess it's sort of private, stepping up to really be able to coordinate a research study that's going to tell us a ton. And it's going to take a little while, but at least somebody is starting, and they're starting in a broad geographic and socioeconomic group by doing that. So
yeah, it is.
And that's exactly the sort of thing you're going to have to do to restart the sport. I mean, the participants in the sport are going to have to know, particularly any sport that involves close contact. We saw what happened with basketball.
Yep.
The athletes are going to have to know that every other athlete is safe.
It's going to be interesting how it's coordinated, but that study, it's essential because not only is it going to tell who's safe, because Stanford University is doing it too, what they're going to tell, and we'll probably know this data. So what is today, like April 15 or 16? I'm always terrible on dates. So as we're recording this, we'll know in a month on a lot better of an idea of how many percentage of asymptomatic carriers, and then the models will be able to actually say, oh, there was actually this many people that got it, because obviously testing is just testing people who go in and get tested. But Stanford's doing a very similar types of studies that MLB's doing, and they're doing, say, they'll go into like a certain population and they'll test 10% of a community, let's say, but on a high number, say 3,000 people, and they'll find out and look for percentage with antibodies, and then they'll know percentage who actually had symptoms or tested. And they're all different tiers, and they'll work backwards, because there's a lot of theories that there's even, way more asymptomatics, which would be interesting, because that would mean obviously a lot more herd immunity, but at the same time, it would mean a lot of other things, that morbidity or mortality is lower than we think. So we'll have a better grasp on that in a month. So the study you're talking about is exciting. Yeah. It's good to hear.
NIH is, I just saw this morning, NIH is looking for volunteers as well.
Yep.
So yeah, as much of this, that's the huge frustration right now. Is we still are flying so blind on some really critical data points that inform the models that are informing these incredibly important economic decisions that we're making.
Great. Well, I know I only got you I know you got a busy day today. So why don't we quickly, if you don't mind, share a little bit. I know we've talked a lot about your company, but how about number of employees and just any type of physical footprint? If you guys have warehouses, or how many, square feet of the buildings, that way the audience gets an idea for kind of the size and scope of the company.
Well, I think it's always interesting whenever I learn about a brand that I'm familiar with, and or that I think has a big presence in an area. They almost always turn out to be smaller than I think in terms of the stats that you're talking about.
Yep. So,
in each of our respective areas, our brands are extraordinarily well known. And you talked about the niches. My phrase is, we sell to nuts and nerds. So in rowing, we've been around for 35 years. We are the only company that makes most of the products that people are buying from us. There's one other company in England that is doing similar work, but they're significantly smaller. In the world of handheld weather instruments, we're pretty much it. And when you get over onto the specialized shooting area, the Kestrel has actually become the mark of a sniper. If anybody's taking a picture or making a movie or writing a book, because a friend just sent me pages from a monster hunting book yesterday.
That's funny.
And accurate long range shooting is a part of the story. The number one way people are now communicating that is by involving a Kestrel in the story. So a Kestrel's going to be in the photo shoot, a Kestrel's going to be in the movie. We've been in so many movies and television shows at this point. But so that gives you a sense of the size of the brand in these spaces. In terms of the size of the actual company that's making that happen, we are the NK Group, which is the NK brand, the Kestrel Instruments brand, and the Kestrel Ballistics brand, is about 100 people working in a 25,000 square foot factory, and we are building everything there. And about half of those people are involved in building products, and all of the logistics and sourcing and everything else that goes along with that. And about half of those people are sales and marketing, research and development, and admin support. So that's the size of the team in Pennsylvania. Rainwise is also a 40-plus-year-old brand, really well regarded and well known in the weather space. And it's really a pretty small group. It's about 15 people in a small building that's actually really near Bar Harbor. They're just before the bridge that you go over onto Mount Desert Island to Bar Harbor. And the ambient team is a little more typical of companies that are importing stuff from outside, from overseas. That's about a 12-person team working in a warehouse in Phoenix, Arizona.
Wow. And how are you, the CEO, managing, teams? I mean, nowadays we're all getting better at it because we're work from home, but it's they are different product lines too. It's not just managing different people, but you have different people, different geographies. Each one of these companies, I'm assuming, is going to have its own budget and forecast and marketing strategy, or are you able to kind of combine some of those, disciplines?
No, you pretty much nailed it. It's, it's a little bit different for each of them. One of the things, having everybody on the same platform in the back end where we can see the same results, but, everything from Google Analytics, each company's got their own analytics platform. We're running different online advertising strategies, measuring the impact of those separately. And you also nailed it when you said that we're getting better at it. I mentioned, so we closed one in January, or one in December and one in January. And I was still in the process of kind of trying to figure out how to do all of that. And I will say that as a result of this, I think I'm now doing a better job of that than I might have if I hadn't sort of been forced to figure out all these things. I mean, one of the things that I do, not every week, but I use Zoom to record a meeting with myself, and I can do a presentation, and then I can I upload that to I usually use YouTube and make it unlisted, and then take it down shortly thereafter, and then share it with the whole team. And that's really talking about the three companies together has really helped all three companies better understand each other. So that was a technique that I added to my CEO toolbox that I'm not sure I would have figured out quite as quickly.
That's a great idea. I mean, communication's a shortfall right now. So any way you can improve communication.
You can't communicate too much. I had a town hall with the entire team in Maine via Zoom, and it worked remarkably well. I was pretty psyched about that. And right now we use pretty much Slack, ClickUp for all of our project management, and that runs across all the companies and platforms. We're actually probably going to switch to Microsoft Teams, not just because it has some capability. If you're on if you're inside the Microsoft world, it has some capability that is easier than Slack.
We're using it, by the way. It's really good. Teams is great, especially if you're a 360.
Yeah, you need something like that. Yeah, you need a tool like that. You need a real-time chat communication tool. So we've actually been surprised at how, and I'm so grateful to my really phenomenal small IT team. We were remarkably ready to do this. They had done a fantastic job. We have the VPNs. We can remote into computers to run stuff inside the plant. Everybody had just seamless connectivity. So it's it's kind of an introversion extroversion measure. Those of us who really get energy from being with other people are really missing it, and those of us who find that a little bit wearing are super happy to be working from home.
That is so true. But yeah, there definitely is I'll second that. I can definitely see both of those sides. So definitely a lot of energy can be lost for those folks that really, work off of that other human contact. So I think that's a problem. And then, but after, we come back to work, we'll see. There might be, more remote work happening or more opportunities because like you said, I think, you mentioned your words where you were surprised at how well it's working. And I think a lot of companies are, and there's some improvements.
We'll make some changes for sure. Mm-hmm. We were already pretty consistently working from home on Wednesday, but I think we're going to open that up. We might, we'll work as a team to decide what days we want to try to make sure we're all available for meetings in the office. I think, and I was I have plans to add 13,000 feet to that 25,000 foot building, and I'm not sure now.
That's right. You need it for the manufacturing, but maybe not for the office.
Right. The office is one of the big things that was driving it actually. So, but then then it's going to be interesting because are we going to have sort of hot desks or shared cubicles so I don't know. It is there are some positive things about this. I hope we all don't just go back to doing things exactly the same way.
Well, I can almost guarantee we won't. I mean, there's such been a massive change, and that's why I like to talk about, how businesses are succeeding in COVID-19 in this time around COVID-19. Talking about your D2C, what proportion of your sales, if you can share, is direct to consumer, not on Amazon, but I mean literally out of the website? I know you got the different brands, but does it become a big proportion of sales, or are most done through Amazon and other online marketplaces?
So Amazon and direct to customer together is a little over 40%. I would say that direct to customer across all of the brands combined is around 15%.
Yep.
And it's pretty variable from brand to brand. So with rowing, it's almost, rowing, we export about 40% of what we make for rowing, and that's all with a distributor partner who's pretty direct to customer in their respective country. But, domestically, we're pretty much handling all of that direct to customer, and it's almost all through the website. Kestrel Instruments, for us as a manufacturer, like a lot of manufacturers, we've been growing and evolving on this. We always did things a little bit differently. We basically never used distributors for a variety of reasons, but we pretty much were two-step, and a lot of our partners had websites. And I think at this point, 4 years ago, we made the step to go direct to customer ourselves at the same price that we do have a pretty strict price maintenance policy, but we had not been selling at that direct to customer price, and we switched. I would say I think it's around 4 years ago, and that was an interesting transition. And of course, our resale partners were very worried that we were going to take business from them, but in reality, basically, sales grew. It lifted, rising tide lifted all boats. The fact that we could afford to do more promotional and educational activities because we were capturing some margin really helped everyone. I always advise everybody to do the same thing. Yeah.
I think, and usually the response, especially of the important customers, because they're usually bigger customers, is they usually don't care when a small and medium-sized brand sells direct. So I'm really glad it worked out.
Well, again, I think it's the other manufacturers I know where they get the huge pushback is big box retail. So, and that's another place I just have no interest in going.
Yeah.
We don't make anything that's commodity.
Well, and that gives you your advantage. And Alix, what is, and I know we got to wrap this up, but what is online? Is anything stand out where you're winning? Is it because you're acquiring emails because you've got, an engaged audience? Is it because maybe you're really good at SEO or content marketing or social media? Is there anything that you found that's really worked well for you guys?
Big picture, it is brand. It is brand familiarity. By and large, most of our sales, if you look at the search terms, people are already looking for our product. And that doesn't happen overnight, obviously. A lot of that has to do with being a very long-term player in particular areas. But the Kestrel Ballistics area would be the one where we came on most recently, and we're completely not a shooting brand. There's some super well-known brands if you're into any aspect of shooting and long range and optics, and we were a brand new player in that space. And to a large extent, that was word of mouth. And people once they were buying our product, they were already looking for it. One of the things that has been actually interesting to do in the Kestrel weather instrument space has been to figure out what search terms people are using to accomplish a specific new job so that they would discover that we had a solution. And examples of that would be in agriculture, spray damage mitigation. So when you go spray stuff on your crops, it might be great for your crop, but not so great for your neighbor's crop.
Yeah.
And so now there's a lot of requirement to monitor wind speed, temperature, and humidity right where you're spraying. weather from an airport 15 miles away is completely useless for that. So figuring out, we do a lot of research to try to see what terms people are Googling when they're looking for that product, so we can make sure we can get our product in front of them for them to know that there is a new solution that they didn't know about. And those are the really fun areas, convincing a person to buy the product that's already Googling your product. Maybe you have an opportunity to upsell them, but they're really far down the sales funnel, which is awesome, but you're probably going to get a sale there. It's getting our product in front of people that don't know that there's a solution to the problem that they're having.
Exactly. Yep. And that's that education, top of the funnel. Listen, we've covered so much on this podcast, and it's you've done a great job. You got 3 different companies. You have to purchase some companies along the way. You're a recovering attorney, so you've got a great background and have shared a really cool story with us today with, I think, hopefully a lot of value. How about, if you don't mind, sharing where the listeners can get a hold of you? Is it best to contact you on LinkedIn, or they find out about your companies on any specific domain you want to point them to?
So the NK domains live at, if you want a single site that's going to be the home for all 3 of them, that's nkhome.com.
Great.
And you can Google any of the brands and it'll take you straight to the site. I'm A. James at nkhome.com, and always welcome people who have questions or want to talk about any of the stuff we talked about.
Awesome. Well, we'll have that in the show notes for the listeners, and really want to thank you again, Alix, for being a guest on the Page One podcast, sponsored by Retail Band. Also appreciate and thank you to all the listeners. Truly appreciate your reviews on iTunes, and hope you guys join us for the next interview. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Luke.
Thanks for listening to the Page One podcast with Luke Peters. If you like our show and want to know more, check out our other segments. Also, please help us out by leaving us a rating on iTunes. Want to learn more about our commerce? Check out www.retailband.com to get more great tips and tricks on how to accelerate your e-commerce sales with the big box retailers.